Well, it's a campaign. I don't know if that's the right word for it. Really, that's run. It came out of Church of England a number of years ago. Basically, the general gist of it was to encourage folk to pray over the 10 days between Ascension and Pentecost, and so most of that was initially aimed at the idea of picking 5 people to pray for during those days and to pray for them each day. And they produced a whole bunch of resources to encourage folk to do that, but then just in general to encourage folk to be a bit more intentional about their prayer time.
And you felt this is something good to do for you as a church?
Absolutely. I think it was making prayer not a difficult thing, maybe, and it was very intentional about bringing members of the congregation together to pray, but also individuals praying at different times during that period of time.
Yeah. So there's a number of different things that we've done to kind of encourage the congregation to pray more. So initially we put out a wee card with you write the 5 names on it, and then you got a wee leather cord which you would tie 5 knots in, and that would remind you of the 5 folk to pray for. We've opened the church for prayer, and we had a labyrinth one time where we opened the church to allow folk to kind of use the labyrinth in contemplative prayer. And each time we've also done a 24-hour prayer where we get folk to sign up for an hour that they will pray in that hour, and we do that over 24 hours, so starting I think Friday evening through to Saturday evening, just before Pentecost really, to encourage folk just to take a whole hour set aside particularly for them to pray. And then, these are things that we do together with other churches as well, to get more folk involved. But one of the other churches also then ran a kind of evening service, a kind of 10-minute online on Zoom prayer kind of vigil stroke meditation thing, and again we encouraged folk to go along to that. And then with the church open for prayer, we did lots of different things with that.
We would do kind of prayer spaces, I guess, so kind of different stations around the church to focus people. So there'd be a community one, so you might have things with like this praying for the medical things, so doctor surgery type things, or school books and things as well, but also big sheets up so we could talk about church family and people could add things to the sheet. And then we've had that up in church over the next wee while so people can see who are coming in who are not necessarily involved in the prayer things, but see that we've been intentionally praying for community and school and all these other things that are part of our everyday life.
Yeah, I think it helps to kind of maybe break the mold a wee bit in terms of what we think prayer is and how we should pray, and to go beyond just the kind of what we might consider to be, praying the Lord's Prayer or something simple as that, as good as it is, to open our eyes to other ways in which we can pray in terms of contemplative prayer or meditative prayer or praying for different situations and places, and having that kind of focused prayer and praying together as well.
And I think people worry about trying to fill an hour of prayer if you're signing up for an hour, but actually the thing that we get feedback from is that went by really quickly, and actually I could have prayed more. And you're like, absolutely, please do.
Yeah, I mean I think the 24-hour prayer is something that we've done every year since we started doing Thy Kingdom Come, and it's to me is the bit that most people really engage with, and yeah, the response is that folk find themselves initially thinking, how am I going to fill an hour worth of prayer, and afterwards they're sitting there going, I ran out of time. There was so much I was going to pray for, and I lost track of time, and before I knew it my hour was up. And then the flip side of doing a 24-hour one, so we have everyone takes an hour slot and signs up for it, and they do it in their own home. is that initially I thought, how are we going to fill the 3 a.m. slot and the midnight slot and the 5 in the morning slot, and now I find that actually the difficulty is not filling those slots, they go first. The difficulty is filling the midday slot and the afternoon slot, because folk come in and the first thing they want to do is they're wanting to sign up for a prayer at some unearthly hour, and so they're the more popular slots, and that's quite interesting. I even had one person who contacted me saying, could I do the 3 o'clock slot? And I said, no, it's taken. And they were, well, what about the 4 o'clock? No, that one's gone.
And this
2
is
o'clock.
in the morning.
Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning. No, that's gone. 1 o'clock in the morning. No, that one's gone. And I said, look, you're going to have to either pick the 7 in the morning slot or the 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because in between those two times there are full already. So that's been wonderful to see people keen to pray and not shy away from praying at an unearthly hour in the morning. But when we do it in the building, when we're doing the prayer stations, you do have things that folk can write on, and then people can see what's been written about, what visions folk have had, or if they've had a particular piece of scripture come to mind, that'll be written up, or illustrated sometimes. And it's, you then see everybody's outcome of it, contribution to it, and that's wonderful to see, and that encourages folk that they're not on their own when they're praying.
I think people talking about it after it was done, because then on the Sunday people are then coming together and talking about spending that time in prayer, and then it reflecting with other people who are then going, I'll join up for that next time, and things, which has been very exciting. And we've used the family resources as well as a family, and spent that time together with the 5 of us, and there was a map, and you had to kind of use a QR code and kind of do a journey together as a family as well, which meant our children were involved as well, and they got a lot out of that as well, and it encouraged them in their prayer life, I think, as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall just that encouragement of other congregation members talking about it and sharing with other members how it's affected them, and encourages them to then, those who hear about it, to think, well, actually maybe this is something I could be involved in and do as well. To encourage folk to pray intentionally and to do it more. If we're really honest with ourselves, we probably don't pray enough. I think to encourage folk to keep doing that, and for other folk to encourage other folk to do that as well, rather than just being, a diktat from the pulpit on a Sunday morning that we should pray. Actually, folk, each other, seeing the benefits of praying themselves and together as groups, and seeing answers to prayers in that, has been wonderful and encouraging, and it builds faith within the community of the church.